Against the Times, Looking for Mother's Heart. Chapter 1, Lost Memories. On the edge of Chang'an City, there is a simple hut, which is simply furnished, clean but deserted. There lived a young man named Shen Yanhuang, who was about 20 years old, slender in his body, and although his face was handsome, he always had a gloomy temperament. This temperament comes from the shadow that he can't get rid of in his heart, the early death of his mother. Since he was a child, Shen Yanhuang has no memory of his mother, who died shortly after he was born, and his father, Shen Hengchi, as a businessman with a strong career, has been busy with business for a long time and has not taken much care of him. Shen Yanhuang's childhood was almost spent with an old nanny Ma Yuerong. Ma Yuerong has a gentle personality, although she is old, she takes care of Shen Yanhuang like a mother and gives him some warmth, but Shen Yanhuang has never been able to forgive her father Shen Hengchi's indifference. Every time Shen Yanhuang stared at his father's face, which was always busy and indifferent, the resentment in his heart quietly grew. The death of his mother made him full of questions about the world, and countless obsessions were buried in his father's heart. Why did his mother leave so early, but his father never seemed to really stop for him? Chapter 2, The Mist of Time. One night, when Shen Yanhuang was flipping through the letters and old things left by his father, suddenly, a certain letter caught his attention. The things mentioned in the letter made him wonder, why had he never heard of these things? His mother's name, Gu Yunyan, was mentioned in the letter, but the letter was vague and revealed a strange hint that some unrevealed secret was hidden. The letter mentions a place, Fenjiao Valley, which is a secluded place far away from Chang'an, and it also mentions a mysterious power of time and space, which is the power that can travel through time. An impulse appeared in Shen Yanhuang's heart, to go to Fenjiao Valley to see if he could solve all the doubts in his heart. With this uncertain hope, Shen Yanhuang decided to set off. When he embarked on the journey to Fenjiao Valley, he vaguely felt some strange fluctuations in his heart. Chapter 3, Time Against the Current. When Shen Yanhuang finally arrived at Fenjiao Valley, he did not enter immediately, but wandered in the valley for several days. One day, when he came to a seemingly ordinary cave, suddenly, a strong light came from the cave, and immediately surrounded him. His body seemed to be pulled by an invisible force, the world in front of him was blurred, and there was a strange tinnitus in his ears. As the light faded, he was shocked to find that he was no longer the same person he had been. He stood in the midst of a familiar scene, but it had a strange feeling. This is Chang'an City, but everything seems a little different, the streets are noisy, but they are dressed in a very different way from the clothes he is familiar with, and the cries of the vendors seem to have returned to 20 years ago. Shen Yanhuang was shocked. What is the situation? He seemed to have traveled back in time to Chang'an 20 years ago. Chapter 4, First Encounter with Young Parents. In the confusion, Shen Yanhuang seemed to hear a familiar voice, which made him stunned for an instant. That was the voice of her mother Gu Yunyan. He came to his senses and hurried in the direction from which the voice came. His heartbeat involuntarily accelerated as he made his way through the crowd and finally saw that familiar back. It was young Gu Yunyan. She was young and beautiful, walking side by side with a tall and handsome man. That man was none other than Shen Hengchi. His youthful appearance was completely different from his current maturity, with a smile on his face, and his eyes were full of tenderness and firmness. This scene made Shen Yanhuang have mixed feelings in his heart. He couldn't understand why the father he knew back then was so different from his young father at this time. When they approached, Shen Yanhuang impulsively shouted, "Father, Mother." Gu Yunyan and Shen Hengchi turned their heads at the same time, their eyes flashing with surprise and confusion. "Who are you?" The young Gu Yunyan frowned and asked. Shen Yanhuang was speechless, and only felt a tear in his heart. He originally thought that going back to the past would solve the doubts in his heart, but he didn't expect that he would become a stranger. However, with the communication between Shen Yanhuang and Gu Yunyan and Shen Hengchi, they gradually discovered that this young man from the future seemed to have an inexplicable understanding of their past. Shen Yanhuang kept telling them about some things in the future, which made the two of them feel uneasy, but they couldn't help but be curious. In the days that followed, Shen Yanhuang spent some time with his young parents, witnessing their acquaintance, and love. Shen Yanhuang gradually understood that his parents were not as perfect as he imagined when they were young. They have also had disputes, pains, and even faced countless choices and challenges. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 5: The Exercise of Emotions. As Shen Yanhuang's relationship with his parents gradually narrowed, he found that his understanding of them had changed subtly. He used to feel that his father was cold and ruthless, but now, facing this young father, he began to understand why Shen Hongsh was so obsessed with his career, because he didn't want his family to suffer. He once thought that his mother's death was some kind of injustice, but now, he began to realize that his mother was not ruthless, but made the most difficult choice in desperation. However, just as the relationship between the three of them became more harmonious, the passage of time brought new challenges. Shen Yanhuang found that his appearance at this point in time could change the trajectory of the entire future. If he is not careful, it can lead to the early death of his mother and even cause a rift in the relationship between his parents. Faced with such a predicament, Shen Yanhuang had to make a difficult choice. Should he change the future again, or let go and let time flow? Underscore 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 un. Chapter 6: Goodbye Mother. In a sudden disaster, Shen Yanhuang found himself standing beside his mother Gu Yunyan again. This time, he finally understood that he could not make any changes, because everything was predestined. However, Shen Yanhuang is no longer the lonely and angry young man he was at the beginning. He understood the pain and helplessness of his parents, and he also learned to forgive and release. When he told all his emotions and thoughts at the last moment before his mother's death, he finally got peace of mind. Time passed again, and Shen Yanhuang returned to the future, but he knew that his heart was no longer the obsessive teenager in the past. Chapter 7: The Wheel of Fate. When Shen Yanhuang returned to the future, he found that time did not seem to stand still. All the memories and scenes are still deeply engraved in his mind, and the time spent with his young parents is still like a vivid dream. However, it wasn't as simple as he had hoped. The reality he returns to is not exactly the same as the world he left in. Something subtle changed, as if he had inadvertently happened quietly. When he saw his father Shen Hongsh again, he found that the cold father was not as ruthless as before, but showed some kind of indescribable concern for him. Shen Yanhuang's heart was full of doubts. He couldn't help but think back to every choice he had made in the past, and was it that it was these choices that changed his relationship with his father? He decided to think deeply about the reasons for these changes, and perhaps there were some things that he did not fully understand. In Shen Yanhuang's heart, the figure of his mother Gu Yunyan is still clear. He knew in his heart that his mother's early death was a wound for him that would never heal. However, he finally understood that his mother's departure was not because he or his father had done anything wrong, but as a matter of fate. Her love was deep, and even at the moment when she was no longer there, she never left him. He knew that he could not continue to cling to the pain of the past, because that would only cause him to miss out on the present. He must learn to accept the arrangement of fate and face everything with a more mature mindset. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 8: The Father's Secret. However, Shen Yanhuang's life has not become easier because of this. By chance, Shen Yanhuang accidentally discovered a secret of his father Shen Hongsh. It was an unsent letter, and the content mentioned in the letter surprised Shen Yanhuang. Gu Yunyan's death is not only an arrangement of fate, but also an external force beyond our control. I couldn't let her go, but her death had planted endless remorse and pain in my heart. The letter was written concisely and cryptically, but Shen Yanhuang could feel the helplessness and pain in it. He suddenly realized that his father had been hiding an unspeakable truth. Shen Hongsh is not unloving his mother, in fact, his heart is full of guilt and self-blame for his mother. This discovery made Shen Yanhuang's mood extremely complicated. He could no longer simply see his father as the one who was ruthless. He knew that his father had been under tremendous pressure for so many years, and he had never been aware of it. I was wrong. Shen Yanhuang whispered to himself, his heart full of self-blame. Maybe he shouldn't have resented his father so early, maybe he should have understood that his father's pain was far deeper than he imagined. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9: Restoring Affinity. Shen Yanhuang decided not to run away from these emotional burdens. He found Shen Hongsh and calmly expressed to him his misunderstandings and knots all along. After hearing this, my father was silent for a moment, and then slowly spoke, Yanhuang, I always thought that I had done enough, but I overlooked the most important point, that is, what you need is my company, not my career. This sentence deeply touched Shen Yanhuang's heart. He understands that his father is also under the pressure of both family and career, and has never really understood his heart's needs. A trace of complicated emotions flashed in Shen Hong's eyes, but then, he stretched out his hand and gently patted Shen Yanhuang's shoulder. We are all learning to grow, Yanhuang. I have been working hard all these years, although I haven't expressed it. From that moment on, the iceberg between father and son began to melt quietly. Shen Yanhuang is no longer the young man who only knows resentment and accusations, but has learned to face his father with a more tolerant and understanding heart. Since then, Shen Hongche has also devoted himself more to communicating with Shen Yanhuang, and although he is still busy, he has begun to understand that only by truly entering the family can he understand the true value of it. Chapter 10, The Future Rebirth. As time passed, Shen Yanhuang gradually freed himself from the pain of the past. His mind was no longer obsessed with his mother's untimely death, and while the memory still haunted him, he learned to see it in a more mature way. Shen Yanhuang is no longer a simple lost child, but a man who can share the responsibility with his father and shoulder the future. He became closer to Shen Hongche and began to run the family business together. They began to redefine what it means to be a family, not just material support, but emotional connections. During this time, Shen Yanhuang never forgot the connection between himself and his mother. At night, he often looked up at the starry sky and said softly to his mother, I finally understand, Mother, no matter where we are, you will always be in my heart and never far away. This kind of thinking made Shen Yanhuang's heart stronger. He is no longer the child who is completely lost in the past, but has found his way and learned how to step out of the shadows of the past and embrace the future. Shen Yanhuang understands that no matter how time passes, the power of family affection will always be his strongest support. And on this road, whether it is the company of his father or the memory of his mother, it is the most precious existence in his heart. Epilogue. Against the Times, Looking for Mother's Heart is the story of Shen Yanhuang's emotional growth with his parents, and the journey through time allows him to grow from confusion to growth, and finally find the balance of his heart and the true connection between his family. It's a story of forgiveness, understanding, and self-redemption, and it teaches us that no matter how fate plays tricks, love and affection are always the forces that can heal the wounds of the past.